Lord, we just thank you again for the opportunity to share our mana'o with all that all that is on our program. We welcome you all and we thank the Lord for allowing this to happen. It is such an awesome way to, again, share with all of us what we all are about as to who we are and who you are, Lord. And we're ever so thankful. And we give all of, honor and glory to you, Lord. And we just pray that our message for today would truly allow us to realize how important we are and how important you are. Because for everything that happens, it is because of you. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. Mahalo.
Hi, mahalo. Okay, so let me bring up our video here.
A long time ago, Papa and Makia were the ancient watching over the sky. His name was Hāloa. He did not survive.
Papa and Makia buried their firstborn .
A long time ago, Papa and Makia were the ancient mother and father, watching over the earth, watching over the sky. All things, alive and aware, were born from them. Their first child was Keiki Alualu. His name was Hāloa. He did not survive, and with much sadness, Papa and Makia buried their firstborn in the ground. The earth was enriched by the body of the firstborn, and a plant sprouted. A green plant, kalo, with quivering leaves, laukapalili, and the stem was given the name Hāloa. Papa and Makia had a second child, who they called Hāloa Naka. This child had many children, and his children had children, and his descendants multiplied and traveled and became the Hawaiian people. Nourished by the body and the mana of the older brother, Kalo became a source of vitality, character, and spiritual representation. It is a lasting gift of life through food from one brother to another. This is the reason we honor the seasons of Hāloa. ka ia laumoho loloa o ka ʻāina.
We all eat. We all know food nourishes our bodies and becomes the foundation for our health. Not only should we eat right, but we should understand that our food is from the land, and we are from the land. To know our ʻāina and our food is to know ourselves.
Hawaiians were probably the healthiest people on earth. White people that came here were smaller than the Hawaiians. You can tell that in the descriptions that they've left for us, that the Hawaiians were taller, bigger, sturdier, more muscular.
Hardy, robust, capable of great fatigue, that is, work. They walked graciously and nimbly, and were really highly envied by those Europeans who first came upon them.
The health problems that affect Hawaiians today are very similar to those that affect the rest of America. It's just that they affect us even more than other people. We at one time were stricken by those communicable diseases, measles, chickenpox, those things that were brought to us.
Ma'ipu'uwai, heart disease, ma'ia'ai, cancer, stroke, accidents, diabetes, even suicide. We're also too eagerly taken on harmful diet. Too many calories, too much fat, especially saturated fat, too much cholesterol, too much salt, and we have the highest rates for obesity, high blood pressure, which can be directly related to what is really misnutrition.
Those diseases are preventable if we practice better nutrition and a few behavioral changes. So it's not a sure thing that we will die of diabetes because the rest of our family did. There's more to help us live and live healthily.
Ku ia ka mālama e elekoa.
So much has been lost, so much to restore. Confidence, identity, remembering our culture, remembering our ways. But most important is returning to a healthy lifestyle.
A healthy Hawaiian is knowledgeable about his body. I mean, he knows pain, and he knows when things are not right, and he knows his body parts. He knows also how to stay trim, the good foods to eat, the discipline of staying away from the fast foods. He's exercising, caring for his body as he's responsible for his family.
There has to be proper balance, harmony, relationships between complementary opposites. And this requires effort. When there is proper harmony and balance, then that's known as Pono. Proper, orderly relationships, and things go well. Which also means if things don't go well, it means that there's imbalance, there's disharmony, and so a person has to assume responsibility.
We've become a real fast disappearing race. They say by the year 2040 there will be no pure Hawaiians left. So we need to kind of keep that in mind so that we can disprove those statistics, that we will be around as pure Hawaiians or part Hawaiians, so that we could live in the ways that we want to live today.
He po'oulu kona mea kanu.
A deep understanding will come as we take responsibility for our own health and for the ones we love. How we take care of ourselves and our minds will determine the future for our children. and our children's children.
Each of these foods for Hawaiians are personification of one of the gods. And the belief is that when you eat those foods, you take on the strengths and the qualities of those gods. No other people that I know of make that direct association between the spiritual world and things that happen every day.
It's a form of our spiritual connectiveness. You know, I think somehow that's got to be worked into our daily life and practice. And that energy that plants give us is the mana that make us what we are and make us connected to the earth.
How it droops, all different. That's how you can identify the different colors.
Kalo kanu o ʻāina.
Our kupuna knew that to heal the body, the spirit must also be fed and renewed. One cannot be without the other. For in the Hawaiian mind, we have ea, by being strong in mind, body, and uhane.
When older Hawaiians were around us, they would tell us, eat the vegetables, eat that's your medicine now, you eat all of that. They were telling us the truth, and today when we look at it, we know that the elders really knew that there was a connection between health and that food.
You eat the traditional food after lunch, you feel energized, and it's a physical thing that comes over you, and so then it affects you spiritually. When you eat the poi, you feel good, and if you grow it, you feel even better. And if you pound it, you feel even better.
It's that relationship and the connection you form with the gods and with nature and with one another that keeps the health going.
A lot of people are looking for that fast, quick answer, you know, with all these different diets. And really, as Hawaiians, all we need to do is look into ourselves. A lot of people don't like changes, but changes need to be made. But as Hawaiians, we're not really making a change. All we're doing is going back to the roots.
Ua ola loko I ke aloha.
Being whole is to have lokahi. It means getting rid of the negative things in your life and replacing them with love and understanding. To have lokahi is to have harmony and to live in agreement with the world. To have lokahi is to be complete.
When you look at health, you have to look at physical health, spiritual health, environmental health. You know, you have a good sense of your history, who you are, where you came from, and a good sense of your future, where you're going. So all those things impact on us, and then it impacts on what we eat, and then, you know, taking a look at those things always makes us, you know, more in balance.
It's a holistic kind of attitude. It's everything coming together for the best health, not only just the physical, but mental, spiritual, psychological, and social health.
The term for health is the same as the term for life, which is ola. So, to be alive is to be healthy. To be healthy is to be alive.
Makamua nakamuli.
Our older brother is kalo, the food. Our older brother is life. But modern lifestyles can make it difficult to return to this diet and other Hawaiian food. Uncovering the past will guide us into the future.
If we look at food that our kupunas ate and try to identify with that, then it'll come out kalo, uala, ulu, fish, fern shoots, these kinds of foods, limu, these are truly the Hawaiian food that we need to identify with. Kids, check out, look at the type of limu I'm picking up. William, come, so you can see Look at these plenty kind limu, yeah? Okay. You see how nice? And what is this? Hulu hulu waina. Our food is as good, or the way I feel, better than any of the foods that's out there.
A big reason why we wanted to do the Hawaiian diet was we saw an opportunity for us to not just help and assist our student athletes in their performance level, but also to educate them and to make them aware of what we're all about. And there was no better way to do it than with the foods. Our kids had a greater appreciation once we went through the program. They realized that this is something that they can touch with themselves, because this is culture, this is history, this is what being Hawaiian is all about.
Yeah, yeah, I see the Hawaii aioli. Remember that's the one we had in our salad.
Makino ke kalo a ole I ka palili.
For each of us, our legacy is our family. We can invest in our own traditions and ohana. We can do it with love. We can do it with knowledge. We can do it with hope.
Food is an important component, but family is important also. I don't care how good the food is, but without the family surrounding and support, it does not become as important in the overall well-being.
We need to be aware that when a loved one wants to make a change, that we need to support that and give them every help that we can.
There's no way that you can have a healthy nation and not have a healthy family. And so it begins with the individual, the family. And it's one of just feeling really strong and happy and proud that we can relive those traditions. We continue to pass on those traditions.
I think basically we have in us all that there needs to be to make these changes that are so important so that Hawaiians can go on.
I think it's important that, you know, certain period of our lives we should be able to at least touch the earth and have some experiences with it, you know. So that helps to shape us, whatever we're gonna be.
Hāloa must be taken care of. And if Hāloa was the first one to be the kalo, and his brother the one that we have all come from, then I'm proud to be a Hawaiian, and that the kalo is an integral part of being Hawaiian.
Our health is a reflection of our food, and our food mirrors our soul. It connects our ancestors to us. We must remember, find, and know the past. It's the key to the future. It is living in unity and harmony in mind, spirit, and body. We are part of the circle of life. And for every healthy change we make, the Hāloa cycle will continue, season after season, year after year, and person after person after person.
I say we came from wherever the kalo came from.
All we're doing is going back to the roots. And the roots is right here, what we've got. It's in our food, it's in our land.
I believe that Hawaiians have a great contribution to make to the world. And I want them to be here for many thousands of years to come.
We are the flock. It is our responsibility to carry on in the tradition of our noble ancestors.
Aluli ke kākou me ka lo kahi.
gathering of civic club members or others. You know, we'll definitely share that in the Zoom chat as well as our Facebook chat. And I think our Facebook site is just catching up here. We're trying out some new technology, so thank you so much. Oh, okay, I see we're live on a gallery view. So I'm gonna turn it over to you, Kim, and mahalo.
Mahalo, Malia.
Thank you, Malia.
That was such a classic. We love Seasons of Hāloa. So mahalo to Malia and to all of the members of Hawaii Pono'i Coalition for creating this Hawaiian History Month, you know, in the absence of being able to meet on the grounds of Iolani Palace to honor the Queen's birthday. Here we are meeting 3 times a week for hours at a time and really getting some really good content about us, about our history, about our culture. And we're really grateful that an entire week was carved out for Ho'ola. And this is the third of our 3rd day of presentations. Papaola Lokahi is pleased to be a sponsor and to partner with the Ahahuionakoka, the Association of Native Hawaiian Physicians, and the Department of Native Hawaiian Health at the John A. Burns School of Medicine at the University of Hawaii, that we've all partnered together to be able to present all of these panels to you. So tonight, now that the video is finished, we have 2 panels for you, and it is my privilege really to be able to introduce you to the first panel, Kupuna, both of whom were in the video, Seasons of Hāloa, that you just saw here. And I don't have really long introductions for them because I'm going to ask them some questions that go back in time, and you're going to learn a lot about them without your standard introductions. So we're going to be talking to Herbert Ho, Uncle Herbert Ho, he is from Hakipu'u by way of Molokai. He's a retired firefighter. The film said that he was a Hawaiian food specialist. So let's ask him exactly what a Hawaiian food specialist means. He's generation 2, I think, he can correct me, of a 4, maybe 5 generation legacy now of serving Hawaiian food. You may all know Hale Ke Aloha belongs to the whole family. Our other panelist will be Dr. Claire Ku'ulei Hughes, originally from Kauai, but grew up also on Oahu. We believe she's the first Native Hawaiian nutritionist. She also has degrees in public health, a doctorate in public health, and she spent more than 20 years at the Department of Health. And it was during her time at the Department of Health that she was able to make sure that this film was made. And Sharon Ka'iolani Odom, whom you'll see on the second panel, was instrumental in bringing people together to put it together. And there are so many others that you've already thanked in the chat. Nalani Maddox was instrumental as well. So without further delay, aloha Claire, aloha Herbert. We're really happy to have you here. I see a table full of food over there in front of the fish pond. So I have a feeling that our lips are going to be watering here. So I have Seasons of Hāloa. Do you remember being a part of that?
Are you asking Herbert or me?
I'm asking you both.
Okay. I certainly do. That was groundbreaking for us, I think, in many ways. We had never done a video presentation before, and we had money from a special federal program, so we were able to do it. And partnering with Nalani Maddox was really the key, because she did a lot of the work.
Awesome. And that was in 1995.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. So 25 years ago now. 20.
Was it 95 or earlier?
Or 2000. 95, I think, is what the credit is. Herbert, do we need to ask Auntie Julia to unmute you? I think so. Aloha, everybody. Meet Auntie Julia.
Behind the scenes. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Do you remember being a part of that film?
It was a shock, actually.
A shock.
It was a long time ago. Yeah. But, you know, I was just amazed. And, you know, I heard earlier when we started, and he was it Bryson, my grandson, was concerned about myself as to, am I able to come on this program right now because of technology? But he is that person that did a lot of the filming for that program. And, you know, especially because a lot of it was, well, a good portion, should I say, was in our, at our home,
Yeah.
you know, and, you know, picking up limu and talking about different things. But there were many programs that we were involved in, but that was one of the programs that were, if you saw, you know, let me make one comment about this. You know, throughout this program or that film that you saw, as far as my, who I am, I chose not to get paid. And my earlier programs was all about sharing what I know. And the other part was that from my connection with Dr. Blaisdell and Dr. Claire Hughes and all of these mentors that I was able to meet at Kamehameha School when I was teaching there about how to eat healthily rather just Hawaiian food. And I chose not to go and say kalua pig and chicken long rice was our regular diet. And with that being said, we focused on proper nutrition. And I had the best because Kamehameha School said, we have the money. You just tell me who you want and we'll bring them in. And all of these people came in. Those were two, you know, I have a note here. You know, I even had the limo specialist. Okay, yes. And she was, you know, what I forgot what her name is.
Isabel.
Dr. Abbott.
Yeah, Dr. Abbott. You know, she was on my program too. So, you know, just grew up in it. I didn't know the technical parts of it. But up at Kamehameha School, there was a verification of what all of this meant. I was the person that was, you know, and that's who I am. You know, I enjoy, you know, from as a child, I was always curious about food prep. And I had this idea that, you know, everything that was around me was healthy. You know, from Mauka to Makai, you know, not only was it our bread basket in Hakipu'u, but it was our playground too. So if you can understand us running up Mauka, up in the mountains, picking up all of the, you know, the fruits of the season, all of the, you know, other vegetables. There were taro and, okay, Auntie is giving me this sign, you know, had mountain apples and had YV and all of these things that was up there. And we didn't need to come home. You know, that's what we ate for lunch. The stream was just flowing with healthy, it was a healthy stream. There was some diversion that caused major problems. You know, we had oopu, we had opai, you know, we had, you know, the
prawns.
Yeah, prawns. We had all kinds of stuff. Even in the fish pond, had, you know, all of these.
In the taro patch, the shell.
Yeah. Okay. In all the shells that, you know, all of these things, I knew they were good, but I didn't know how good it was until I went up to Kamehameha School, and then all of the technical values verified that this is really what I wanted to do after Kamehameha School. I did it for 3 years, and I had the good fortune. I see, all the people, the athletic director on there, and we proved to him that, the football team can be, a healthier, bunch of students there, and we proved that. So again, Blaine Geisen. So these are all verifications of what we're talking about, how healthy our food is. I can keep going on and on, even all of the ocean. I know all of the limu in our area. Everything is in my area. But then it's not the only place, because when I came to Molokai, they have the same limu, but different places do different things. But again, because of Dr. Abbott, I knew the value of all of the limu too. So these are things that, our program is all about.
They are the things, and in fact, as you described it.
So whatever I did was verified by all of these, awesome people that supported me. Thank you.
Mahalo. And all these people you said that were your mentors or supported you, but really the history that I know, that partnership continued, because they might have supported you in your work at Kamehameha schools, but then on Molokai, when I think of Dr. Emmett Aluli, Dr. Kekuni Blaisdell, Claire at the time, and many others. And I didn't call her doctor because at the time she wasn't a doctor. She has done that more recently. So I'm not being disrespectful, but you were a good partnership, a really good team. And you did some really amazing work for Molokai with the Ho'oke'ai diet, which then led into the Molokai diet. So Claire, can you talk a little bit about that? How that came about?
You mean all the diet programs?
Yeah. Well, let's start with Molokai, since after all, this is a history week.
Talking about the Molokai diet.
Yes. Molokai was really kind of interesting. Kekuni and Emmett came up with the idea. And what they were looking for was
data.
Cross-cutting issue across all the illnesses. And one of the things that is involved in diabetes and heart disease and many other things was the food that we eat. And so I believe it was, I don't know which one of those two thought about it, but I do know that Emmett was particularly serious about making it an all Hawaiian food diet. So there were no imported foods that were allowed on the Hawaiian part of this test. And so the whole idea was not a weight loss diet. It was just a change from everyday food that people ate to only Hawaiian food or foods of Hawaii, traditional foods, and then to mark the changes in the blood. So the people that did it were
who we are as Hawaiians.
Yes, and so it was really a very, very interesting test, and what they proved was indeed changing from the foods that we eat without thought every day made our cholesterol levels much higher, much higher. And then when you go to eating the basic foods in our traditional Hawaiian diet, that just the food alone will bring it down, no medicine, just the food alone will bring cholesterol levels down. So that was really it was really an important study. It proved that what our diet was extremely healthy. And then the later ʻŌliʻuokalani was to show that our diet could support highly energetic people that worked all day. And we'd had 3 periods during the day that we did exercise. And we ate food that Herbert prepared all day long for us. So it was great. And we proved that indeed we did get thinner, but we got stronger. So it was, yeah, so those programs were really very important to us. It showed that
the ʻŌliʻuokalani diet didn't only measure physical health, but it also had a measurement for spirituality too, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. So it was really, I don't know, we were very fortunate in those times to do it, because today it would be, it would cost too much. But of course, Emmett and Kekuni, I'm afraid, had to throw a little bit of cash into their Molokai Diet because it was expensive even then.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's really good work. That's the foundation for a lot of work that's happening today. We know that Uncle Herbert there has a whole table worth of food. So before we take a look at those foods, one of the lines in the video, one of your lines, Claire, was you talked about how the food that we eat is the personification of our gods. Can you expand on that?
Well, you know, the whole mo'olelo about Hāloa tells us that from on the grave of the first Hāloa child who died after birth came the first taro plant. And so the taro plant is the most important food in our diet because it came from that first child. So what we're talking about in is the mana. You know, Hawaiians believe everything has mana. Stones, rocks have mana. And yet we think of them as inanimate things. But we believe as Hawaiians that everything has mana. So the foods of the diet were arranged in by Wakea into groupings of similar mana. And so Kani, of course, was the first man. As the first man, the taro plant was a gift of Kani. And that in that family, fresh water has to be there to support the growth of taro. So fresh water and all other greens are in that group. Or mostly all the other greens are in that group. And then the kanaloa foods are fresh water and banana and ava. And of course, all of our mo'olelo that are told about Kani and kanaloa is that they go around the islands, the various islands, and when they get tired and thirsty, that they make a puka in the ground and fresh water comes out of it. So they opened springs in many locations where there was no fresh water flowing. And so they brought the gift of fresh water. So it's both of them have that as the mana that they give to that food. And the breadfruit and coconut tree belong to Ku. Ku we know as popularly as the war god, but he was the manly man, the warrior. And so breadfruit tree and coconut trees represent coconuts and breadfruit. The coconut, by the way, was so full of men's mana that women could not eat coconut at any time, any portion of it. So those rules of division of mana and whether or not a female could eat certain foods was an edict that came from Wakea called the Ai Kapu. my couple was very strong. Kamapua, to finish, Kamapua was represented by the mullet, sweet potato, kukui, and pork. And taro leaves were lono. Mostly greens were considered lono outside of the taro plants. So those are the gods, and it's not really the gods that are represented. It is the mana that they carry, that they give to us. So it's spiritual gift when you eat it. And I remember this concept when it first came out. I was an adult and I never heard of it. And I was so upset at my mother. And I called her, Ma, how come you didn't tell me these things? And she said, well, she said, we're not supposed to. She said, not supposed to tell you because the Christian gods came in and we had to stop that. So it's really unfortunate because I think it's a very nice concept to think about taking in the foods that have this mana and that strength and that can help us. And the strength and mana that it gives us is not wicked, it is really health, related to health. And so, yeah, so I feel that the criticism about it, or the hesitation about teaching this should be dispensed with, because it's not like we're worshiping this. It's to understand the concept of mana that goes into the body, that gives us the energy, that mana energy in our body to be healthy. So, and you know, this story had to be told by kupuna repeatedly to their grandchildren. They must have repeated, one kupuna must have repeated this story in different versions and different parts highlighted. She had 10 grandchildren, good night, I think like 200 times a piece to each of them, just so they knew exactly what their kuleana was. We spend no time on this. Nowadays, we don't even hardly eat together every meal as a family. So we don't get to say, you know, eat that food, it's good for you. It has mana in it. And the mana comes from kanaloa, come from, you know, no time now. We're go too rapidly. And that's unfortunate, because I think the concept of being strengthened by the mana in the plant is so wonderful. So anyway,
that's such an important concept, that you're taking in the characteristics of those deities. You're enhanced and strengthened. So Uncle Herbert, we're coming right to you. I would really love for you to show us these different foods that you have and tell us about the foods, and then maybe a pause so that Claire can add on to, telling something about those foods too.
Absolutely. We live in the world today. Let's start with that as far, you know, the food that I'm presenting. And we can say, well, it's not Hawaiian food. Well, you know, all good food is Hawaiian food. It's for the world, actually. You know, we're not all Hawaiians here. We're not all Hawaiians, you know, on the earth. There's many other variations, but it represents the very makeup of each one is, you know, connected to the power of Hawaii, to the, you know, today's concept, or as we look at from a medical point of view, they all match. We just call it by different names, mana or whatever, but it's the power of the food. You know, we never call them A, B, or C, or you know, vitamin A, B, or C, or any of the other minerals that's there. It was all mana. That's really what I feel is important for us. And when we say, well, it belongs to the God, what it is true, and this is what we're losing today. And that's why we have problems on earth. We don't take care of the land. I was going to finish my project, today is talking about Malama Āina. We cannot talk about this if we don't take care of the land. From Mauka to Makai. And I talked about that when I first started. I said it was a breadbasket and it was my playground. And when I say playground, I didn't know there was exercise. We were just having a great time. You see what I'm saying? It's concepts. And I want to make this clear, and I'll say it right now, it's easier. Some of these things that came, well, all of them came from here. But two things that was very significant. This is venison. This is i'a, fish. It came from one of the people that is part of all of these vegetables that's here. This is the sustainable Molokai.
Can we see the food, Uncle? Can we see it? We cannot see it anymore.
Okay.
Oh, there, perfect.
Okay, ulu is on this side, kalo, all of these green vegetables, but then we understand, I didn't bring luau leaf, but we all understand luau leaf. And
okay, Auntie, we see your finger. Auntie, your finger.
Oh, here's, other vegetables, which is just as good because of the dark green. Most be like the stronger types. But then what I'm trying to say, the fish, and right here is, limu kohu. So that's limu. So you can see, this is what it is. But then, there's more than one. And I use this one, and there's some significance in it. Not everybody can eat it. And even, especially for wahinis, they can eat at a certain time, especially women that, are giving birth, and, they're in that stage of their lives. They need to be very careful. If it's too strong, it hurts them. So there's other limus that they can use. So all of these things, and, we heard of La'au, there was that group. I didn't want to get into the very specific. And as far as the nutritional value, that's Claire's job. That's what, she spent so many years to learn about. But, we just ate it because we thought it was good. But they was the ones that actually told me that, why it is good. And then I get to prepare. So even to the coconut, I just wanted to show you this. And if you see this coconut, it came from that tree right there.
Every day?
Almost every day, I get one. I don't climb it. Now technology I get a big pole, I can pull it down. But this coconut is very special. When I say it's because of its maturity. This, this is at its best time. Okay, the coconut water is just delicious.
And it's Voyagers took it.
Fullest. Now, I cannot prove to you, but, growing up, and my brother Cal, he had kidney trouble. Yeah. And Mom would always tell us, go pick up coconut, and we got to go get the water for him. Yeah, because it helped break down the kidney stone. I cannot, we just did it, but I don't understand it. But what I know is that it's good for us. Number one, this coconut that's how it's all over the place, because it produces its own liquid to be able, where it drops, it fertilizes and it waters its own self. That's why coconut can go all over the world, actually, just by the current. Well, what I wanted to say, how delicious it is, and we have it every day. Because it's at the height where we can still get it, so we have it, almost every day. But we, This have two, what, almost 16 ounces in here. So Auntie and I just have, 8 ounces each. And it's so delicious. And it's sweet enough. You don't need to put sugar in it. That's how good it is. And the other part, we call the meat in there is so tender. We call it spoon meat. That's the one we like the best. The other ones is okay too, but then we gotta chew it up. But there's all of these things that I say, and again, I tell you that, I didn't understand that, but, I get to know and truly appreciate the value of all of the things that, others can verify for all of you. We get eggplants, we got, these are all from our farmers here. It doesn't matter what vegetable, but I choose to have the Dr. Green vegetables, and then, I get tomatoes and other things like this. And I wanted to talk about the venison in particular. Right now, we're overrun by venison, deer of Mauka, and it's hurting Mauka. It's eating up all of the ground cover.
Yeah.
And, the person that shot this realized it. And as much as he didn't want to catch too much of them because the deer looked so nice, but he's choosing to go hunt, take just enough, and then he shares it with the kupuna so that they can have protein. And what I wanted to show you, there is one of the awesome thing about it's how lean it is. There is almost no fat in it. So we're talking about protein without fat. Then we have the fish here. We have all kinds of fish here too. So
Mauka takes care of us, Makai takes care of us.
When I say,
Utilizing.
we need to, take care,
the Āina.
Take care of Āina. That's really what I'm trying to say.
Beautiful collection. Claire, we're still looking at that food. Claire, tell us tell us why this is a well-rounded diet sitting right there in front of Uncle.
Well, number one, it has a lot of vegetables, see a lot of greens there. And today that's what's missing from our diet is all those greens and seaweed. And I learned something from Isabella Abbott as well. When I took class when I got my PhD, and it was called ethnobotany, and I learned a great deal in that. And what she taught us was that Hawaiians ate seaweed in very large portions. They ate it like a salad, not a condiment. Today we eat it as something to season the foods we're eating. It's just a little bit, a little taste. But she said they would gather every day and have that as their salad with all of the flavor in it. So those are the things that have fiber too, by the way. The older folks have to worry about fiber in the diet so that they have a well-regulated body. And that is one of the virtues of greens, is that it has a fiber that doesn't digest, but we take all the good stuff out and the body gets rid of the fibrous part. So that's really good. The one thing I wanted to say about Herbert's coconut is niu hao hao. That's where you have spoon meat in the coconut. Yeah. Niu hao hao, niu is coconut, and the spoon meat is hao hao. Niu hao hao water is medicine for the kidneys. And we've had family members treated for kidney stones. The doctors could not catch the kidney stone because it moves. But the niu hao hao, if you take the water, you can make the stone smaller and no points, no damage done when the stone is passed. So it is medicine. for the kidneys, and it's good for you to drink a little bit every day.
And the whole idea is eat your medicine.
Yeah, that's what, as a kid, that's what the elders would tell us. We sit at the table and of course pushing the vegetables away. They always tell us, you eat that. That's your medicine now.
That's your medicine.
That's your medicine. And
Right.
what they're talking about is the fiber in the foods, all the vitamins and minerals that we know in the greens, and the function that it helps you with on your daily elimination. So that's all of that is why we preach greens, more greens. But this is a beautiful spread.
It is a beautiful spread. You mentioned the limu, and earlier this summer there was a huge bloom of limu lipoa, kailua, Hanale, and many other places. And I gathered, several of my friends and I gathered lipoa and tried different recipes right from Dr. Abbott's book. So I made the limu bread a few times.
Oh.
It was really good. And somebody else I know in Waimanalo put it in, get this, made a martini with the limu, like limu flavored martini.
Put it in your chili pepper water.
There you go. So there was a lot of creativity. I mean, we were sharing ideas and sharing recipes because there was so much limu, and you could go for a walk in the morning and gather bags full. But I want to talk a little bit about Aipono. So Herbert, we had in 2012, you'll remember, we had this great gathering where we took physicians and farmers and foodies like you and like me, and we went to Kaho'olawe to kind of exchange information and build relationships between the physicians, farmers, and foodies. And it was an Aha Huiona Kauka event, and it was really rich. And the theme was Aipono. And you told us that Aipono doesn't start when you sit at the table and start to eat what's in your plate. It starts with the harvesting, before we even got on that plane to fly to Maui, to take the boat over to the island where we would be cooking for one another and sitting at the table together. Aipono started 2 weeks beforehand. So tell us, what is Aipono?
Well, it's eating right. The word is, or,
anti-Alia crazy.
Yeah, and, my program is called Aipono, yeah, Palikelo Aipono. But she was, I was trying to figure, okay, what, I wanted a nice name. He said Aipono, because it's exactly what it is.
Identify who you're talking about.
Malia Creamer. Okay. And he's giving me all a sign. Well, I just know her as Auntie Malia. But then I had the privilege of being with her at Honolulu, Liliʻuokalani Health Center, because she was helping there.
She's teaching Hawaiian.
Yeah, and then she ended up going up to the main office. But in the meantime, I was able to spend a lot of time. And I want to share about that. I did mention earlier, money was not my focus to do what I felt. I felt it was just, that's what I'm supposed to do. And we did a whole bunch of things. But then I started here, and then my son, Kealoha, said, why are we staying up here? My classmates in Kahuku is dying, and they're so young. So that's how I went to Honolulu at Mount Zion Church. And if you want to see big people, they were all there.
3+.
They're 300 pounders, average. They were huge. But, and I said, you know what? It's right by, you know, Liliʻuokalani Children's Center, you know, and when I, you know, I like wherever I go, I make sure, because of what Claire said, that if anybody's going on this program, they need to see their doctor. I am not a doctor, I'm just a firefighter, okay? But we can, through our experience, that major health issues would come to pass. You know, so I will not take responsibility because Claire told me, be careful because it might drop too fast, you know, and, you know, so, you know, they don't want to take their medication, but I'm not the doctor to tell them or how much, or let them be the part of it. But what I found is because I have no medical background, they wasn't interested in coming to wherever I was. Just so happened that, you know, Liliʻuokalani, Gwen Kim, who was the manager down at, said, you know, I'm not, you know, we're not medical doctors, but a lot of our clients don't have, you know, one of the parents, and that's a health issue. And I'm not saying it's because of health, but others, there's many other factors. But if we would, you know, do at least a couple every year, we'll pay for it. And they did. And, you know, that's how, and I was able to go over all throughout the state because of Liliʻuokalani. So I, you know, I really appreciate her and what her vision was. And that's where, you know, I was able to actually, you know, have my son get a few dollars and the others that I needed because it took a lot of work to be done. So again, I just wanted to put that emphasis. It is about how I care about our lahui. I just wanted to say.
That was beautiful, and how food isn't a last minute thought. You have to be, for it to be right, to eat right. Yes. Aipono ola pono. You have to put thought in it way back from the harvesting, from the preparation. Thank you too.
Get to Kaho'olawi. That was one of the best programs because they were all doctors. Hawaiian doctors at that, you know, but they learned so much because, you know, they stay in the queue, air conditioned, you know, we was out there, you know, camping. And, you know, the food, we bought very little, you know, and we ate most of it in the, you know, we ate out of the imu, and that's a trick in itself too. You remember?
Because of your mandate.
Birnie, he's still trying to learn e ala e.
Oh, we'll teach you, Uncle. That'll be the next.
You know, but all of these things, and you know, one of my grandsons was there. You know, he just graduated from college, but that's Bryson's son, brother.
Yeah,
the youngest brother.
Yeah.
You know, and he was able to develop a song, and they danced hula to it. You know, those kinds of. But we had the younger ones, and it was just an awesome thing. But what I thought that, you know, the kauka that was there needed to understand that they got to come into the real world to understand why we do what we do. And I thought that really allowed them to say, you know, we got to get out of this, you know, closet and then go out and meet our people. I thought that
everybody learned from one another. There are a couple of questions. Well, there are a lot of really good comments coming in. So food is medicine. We know that. Diane Paloma says, making me ono all that food in front of you there. So here's a question from Facebook, Auntie Claire. Can you use coconut water to break up bladder stones?
I'm not a therapist, so I can't tell you that. We were, the family members that I had experience with had kidney stones, but the way that this worked, I would think it might work, and it's not harmful. That's what's nice about taking a natural product. It's not harmful. Actually, coconut water is rather low in calories, and because it's so watery, there's not a lot of calories. The flavor comes from coconut, so it's not harmful for diabetics to take. And what Herbert alluded to earlier was the caution is, if you go on a change of diet and eat Aipono, if you lose weight or if you change your habits a lot, sometimes you have too much medicine. You know, you take, as a diabetic or as a hypertensive, you take all this medicine all the time, then you change on to Aipono and you still have all this medicine. And so you may suffer consequences of that. So what Herbert was really good. He had the doctors, the people who came to eat from his program, their own doctors watched them more carefully, those who were on medicines. I remember that I asked about that because we didn't want any problems on this program for Herbert. We wanted to keep it free of any kinds of concerns. But I remember Herbert had someone who had a brand new heart transplant.
Oh yeah.
That was on the diet. I thought, oh my gosh, but no problems. No problems at all.
That was smart. That was really smart to include their doctors, the patient doctors. I have a couple more questions. Seems like this next one is also a clinical question. There are some diet programs that say to cut out all carbs and starches to achieve weight loss. They even say to cut out Hawaiian carbs like poi, uala, and ulu. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, of course, I believe in balancing food. Okay, so take some of every food is the way you should eat for health. Okay, everybody. Then if you have a medical problem, the doctor may tell you to avoid part of the diet for a specific reason, but that's not forever. And if he tells you, for example, I want you to cut all your carbohydrates in half, don't forget to tell the doctor next time you go to see him, hey, doc, can I go back to a little bit more carbs? You don't want to eat all protein. That's not good. So you need to have a balance in each of the food groups, the starchy things and the leafy things together, and then the meat and other sorts of foods. But you have to have a balance. You can't have it all of one thing. And what we do now as a usual thing when we're going out to dinner, we go to the place that serves the most. Not necessarily the best, most honor tasting. Oh, don't go to that place. They give you small servings. You go to the one over here, big serving. So we say big is best. It's not best. So
everything in moderation.
Everything in order. So you don't get out of balance.
And that's really a universal value, isn't it? It's not necessarily a Hawaiian thing. It's a universal value.
No.
Yeah.
And in fact, when I first met you, Claire, and, you know, we went to a lot of meetings and conferences and traveled, you know, we were in the same place at the same time, and you never wanted to sit by Claire because you didn't want her to see what you were eating, right? But what I learned was it's okay to sit by Claire because she eats dessert at every meal. But you know what? She only takes a bite or two. She doesn't take the biggest, right? She doesn't take the sweetest. She just takes a bite or two. And I realized, oh, it's okay to sit by Claire because she eats a little bit of everything. It's the portions that I learned from her.
Portions.
Right. So what is this other question? This is the opposite. This is also another question about coconut water, but it's the converse of what we just asked. So let me just read it to you. Sometimes eating excess meat of the coconut can cause loose bowel movements. You alluded to that. Can coconut water cause the same effect if in excess?
Well, I think anything in excess will affect you somehow. But the coconut meat is very fatty. So if you would take anything fatty, you will have loose bowels.
Yeah.
So just go and drink a glass of oil. Just go drink a glass of oil and tomorrow you'll be in trouble. So
not even that late. That's right.
Not even that late. So you
get ready to run.
Yes. So anything fatty in excess is not good. You know, as children, we used to go to family luau, and many times the elders would leave what is that? Haupia on the table. And so we were cleanup crew. So we would go and all the leftover haupia, we would eat it. Okay, haupia is very fatty. And the next day, my mother knew what we had done. Instead of cleaning up the table, we were eating all the leftover haupia. And we had problems the next day. So, yeah.
Problems fatty you couldn't hide from mom. Yeah, yes. Very good. All right. Lots of really good comments. Everybody's grateful to hear you. Really loves what you both are sharing. We have just a few minutes for closing comments. So I know that Uncle Herbert, you kind of wanted to not forget about Malama Āina. And you did get a chance to mention it. You have some more thoughts more thoughts today about connecting our food to our well-being, to our Āina.
Yeah, again, you know, all of these beautiful things here need good soil and all of those things. Too much chemical in it is not a good thing. Our water supply is in jeopardy because, you know, because of big farmers, they take everything. So, you know, the Taro Patch at Maui, Waiholi, you know, it's still a fight with the money people because water is essential. Okay?
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily for good things. Now they don't plant sugarcane, now they're planting houses. So that takes it away from the Taro Patch as an example. Yeah. That's really, so there is a balance. That's all I'm trying to say. But you say, but we need the home. Well, we send them back from where they come from. You know,
give us back our Āina.
That's what I'm saying, because we need to have, the land can only take care of so many people. We're going to go up, but there's no way how we're going to feed it. So it's going to come from around the world. And you know who's planting it and what they're using to plant it. So we need Malama Āina. We're doing what we're trying to do, take care of our place. The rest of the world need to understand that. All of that fire that's going on, you know, not only up on the mainland, because my family is all there, they're all choking, you know, because it's not taking care of the land. So again, because we're arguing about, oh, we don't have to worry about climate change. Well, that's what it is. No, it's proper, you know, all of this is interesting, but then it can be political too. But I just wanted to, us as people, Molokai, you know, they know very well because, you know, they cannot leave the island. The, you know, the barge is so expensive. We get everything over here. So we got to take care of the island.
Mahalo, mahalo nui. Thank you so much. Claire, you have the most dog-eared copy of Polynesian Family System by Pukui I have ever seen. I know that that's your go-to resource, and I and I know that it really helped to shape your 20 years worth of articles with Kawaiʻola.
Yeah.
I've seen that. There's so many lessons. You've taught us so much over the years. Can you give us some closing thoughts about Aipono as we and all our younger families, you know, before us are moving into the future?
Oh my, that's a weighty responsibility. But,
yeah, in a minute and a half.
In a minute and a half. When I asked my mother about the Hawaiian belief system, she's the one that gave me that Polynesian family system. This one for the audience to see. It is available at Native Books and Things and the university bookstores the first of every school year and semester, because it is a required reading for some of the Hawaiian studies people. It is really an excellent resource. It tells you all kinds of things. And when you start, you don't have to read it. You don't have to read parts that you are not interested right away. You can go right, if you're interested in food like I was, I went right to those chapters and started, and there, every question I ever had practically about food is in there. What Isabella Abbott taught me later was where the food came from. But what I would like to make known to our audience today is how much this food meant to our ancestors. You know, they brought many of the foods with them. 36 different kinds of plants were brought here by the Hawaiian ancestors. Now, you know, we think of, oh, you get on the airplane from Southeast Asia where they started, you can just fly through Beijing and then you come to Hawaii. No way. They came the slow boat. They had to go down. They went the most southerly route of all of the voyagers from Southeast Asia. It took them, some of the anthropologists early on said 300 years. But I was reading this Dr. Sinoto's biography recently. It's wonderful, by the way. His estimate is 150 years. So think about it. Our ancestors brought the plants. They would have had to land, get off, put the plants in the ground, make sure they matured enough to leave again. So it would be years before they got back on the boat. So they would have, some elders would stay in that colony and the young people would get on the boat. But the young people had to be trained. That's how clever our people were. They knew all about traveling and how you cannot make a book. You have to learn it and pass it on that way. So anyway, you can find many answers in this Polynesian systems of Ka'u.
Mahalo nui, Claire. Mahalo to both of you. No, mahalo to all three of you. Mahalo to Dr. Claire Hughes. Mahalo to Uncle Herbert Ho. Mahalo to Auntie Julia Ho for all of your contributions this last hour. We're so grateful. Herbert, you mentioned a couple of times your son Kealoha, who is so important, such a kokua. with your food projects, and he also came to Kaho'olawe with the group. And so we dedicate this program to him in your behalf. And I really mahalo all of you for sharing all that you have. And there wasn't enough time. We know that we need to bring you back again somehow, some way. But for now, I just say mahalo nui to both of you and to your families. And to all the viewers, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Don't go away. We have another amazing panel that will follow up. I'm going to turn this over to Malia and Dr. Martina Kamaka, and mahalo nui kako. Aloha.
Aloha.
Mahalo nui. Oh, that was so great. Mahalo to Uncle Herbert, Auntie Julia, and also mahalo to Auntie Claire, and to you too as well, Kim, for sharing such great mo'olelo with us today. As Kim shared, we do have another panel coming up on Āina Momona, our Āina provides. And I'm just going to do a few announcements here before we get started with our next panel. We invite all of you to participate as a part of the Hawaii Pono Coalition on our Empower the Palace campaign. And if you would like to join us by being a part of this campaign and making a donation, you are welcome to, and you can see here on the screen and also on our website.
Aloha.
Oh, let me see how I can get some muting done on this end.
How was it?
Maile, can you kukua with that? Please help us, and you can take a look here, the donation levels. We also do have some website information
wait, Cam.
Oh, hello, my everybody. We're just doing some checks here. Okay. EmpowerThePalaceAgain.org. HawaiiPonoE.org/empower. Okay, hold on. Just gotta make sure we can get some muting done here. Kalamai. Okay, I think I got it. All right. So Empower the Palace, you can go to these websites. Again, we want to say mahalo nui to all of our partners, to Kamehameha Schools, the Office of Hawaiian Affairs, Friends of Iolani Palace, Kanayo Kana, Oiwi TV, Council for Native Hawaiian Advancement, Liliʻuokalani Trust, Namea Hawaii, Pu'uhonua Society, Manoa Hawaii Nuia Kea School of Hawaiian Knowledge, Manoa John A. Burns School of Medicine, Department of Native Hawaiian Health, Papa'ola Lokahi, Hawaii Youth Opera Chorus, Ka'ahuli Leole'a, Pam Omidyar, and the Noah Webster Aluli Foundation. So thank you again to all of our partners. And you know, our website is where you can get the most updated information about all of our programming at HawaiianHistoryMonth.org. All right, so I think we're ready to transition into our next panel. So again, mahalo to everyone, and I will stop sharing here, and then I'll invite Martina to come on, and we will be able to get started and invite all of our other panel. Aloha, Martina.
Aloha.
Okay, over to you, and let me see, I'll try and get our other panels videos on.
All right, aloha kako. We're going to try to get our panelists up today. I'm really, really excited to share the stories of these panelists with you, they've all touched certainly my work at the School of Medicine in many ways. And we only have an hour, which I know is going to be too short. So I don't want to spend a lot of time with introductions. So I've actually asked each of our panelists if they would be willing to take about 5 minutes to talk a little bit about their work and introduce themselves to you through that. But just real quickly, I want to mention that we have Eric Enos, the co-founder and interim executive director of Ka'ala Farm with us. We have Dean Wilhelm, who with his wife is the founder and co-executive director of Ho'okua'aina. We have Kuʻulei, Native Hawaiian nutritionist, as you heard earlier, with a public health background from Kukua, Kalihi Valley and the Roots program. And finally, we have Hanale Bishop, who's the owner of Homestead Poi. So like I said, all of them have touched my work in some way at the School of Medicine, from me being able to take my students to Ka'ala Farm to learn about that connection of health and Āina, to bringing Kuʻulei in to talk about traditional diet. My connection with Dean goes back to our Punana Leo days and immersion school days with our keiki, and then Hanale Bishop. I got to know him through his dad, who was very instrumental with working with my students and quite an activist in promoting our kalo farmers and the protection of our kalo land. So I'm going to start with Eric and give you a couple minutes to share about yourself and your organization. So Eric, go ahead. Oh, you need to unmute yourself, Eric.
Okay. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Sorry, I'm not ma'a to this technology, but first of all, I want to say how humbled I am and proud to be part of these speakers. There's so much great mana'o and, you know, a lot of that mana of the speakers, and mahalo to all of you have put this together, all the work and all the kokua that has gone into making this work and bringing us all together. But yeah, I'm from the moku of Waianae, and for those out there who don't know, well, Waianae is the moku that goes from Kalailoa, which is Barber's Point, to Kaena, and also goes all the way into the middle of Oahu. The Waianae Uka went all the way, it touched the middle part of Oahu. So that's the total ahukua of Waianae, Kai and Waianae Uka. So we're at Ka'ala Farm, we're at the end. So I did a real quick view because our learning center is located in Waianae Kai, and we're on 97 acres of license agreement. And so this was part of the poi bowl of the whole Waianae coast because of Kawahine Helela o Kaiona, Ka'ala, Mount Ka'ala itself, and that's where we get our water. But I wanted to start with where the bus stops, and this is, and it's a dead end, yeah. So it's at the end of the road. But from here, can we just journey? So this is the bus stops, and so it's 1 mile to our learning center. So travel up the road. So you'll see, continue. Go ahead, the next slide. Okay, continue. And you see that the burn up in a distance. You see, you'll see Ka'ala. Try go back to the next slide. Back up. Just back up. That's Ka'ala. And you see that burned area, yeah. So anyway, forward. That's just a recent burn that was just burned last week. But you can see all the stolen cars. Go ahead, continue. Next slide. Continue. Okay. I'm gonna jump here because Waianae is, first of all, you have the largest population of Native Hawaiians in the Waianae Moku. It's a place that has the least amount of water, and we're also susceptible to fires. We're the hottest spot on Oahu. But okay, next slide. This is the fire of 2018. Next slide. Continue. Next slide.
this is the fire of 2018. That's Ka'ala Farm. You see the lo'i, and that totally surrounded us. It burned our hale, and this was the 2018 fire. All these fires are arson, and they all started, yeah. So this is part of the issue of wellness, because it's spiritual wellness, it's physical wellness, it's emotional wellness, and this is the challenges we're facing today. So this fire totally surrounded us, burnt our hale down. Okay, next slide. Next picture, yeah. And so we had to, in 1 week, we had to bring back the water down. It burned our water line. So at the top, this is 1 mile up to the plantation diversion ditch. Our amount of water, when you step in it, it comes up to your ankles. When I go up to the windward side, they have whole streams. So we're just eking out an existence of water. Yeah, next picture. People living in cars. So this was just taken last week. Okay, next picture. So that's our entrance. Okay, continue. And that was just taken yesterday. So you can see the change in the environment, and this is where we cross the stream. Okay, next picture. This was taken about 1.5 years after the fire. You can still see the mauka, you can see a little bit of the burn, and we're rebuilding the hale. Okay, next picture. Now we're trying to reconstruct our hale, our lo'i systems over here. Okay, next picture. Go ahead. Next. These are some of our interns in the lo'i. So we're using a little bit of it. So it's hardly any bit of, it's not much water, but we're making the best of it. Okay, next. And this is the mala. We're working with families growing dryland kalo. Next. Next. Ku'i with the Ohana Family Day. Next. I'a, and next. So this is one of our interns. So that's just a snapshot of what Kala Farm is and the struggles that we're dealing with. But you know, to bring back life to the land, we really gotta bring back the families, the ohana, the water, and you know, kabai ola, the life-giving waters of Ka'ala. That's our first medicine. That water and the water struggles. Bringing that water, 1978, we brought the water down, and I think a few months later, we were charged with illegal diversion of water in the back of Waianae Valley. And so we brought it down. We fought the water battles, and we're still fighting the water battles today for that very little bit of water. The water was taken out of the valley by sugar plantation, and all our kānaka ended up as in urban settlements and lost all their connection to the Āina. So that's part of our story and our history of the pain that is happening. But it's restoration, bringing back life, bringing back people, and bringing back Aipono. So it's a struggle. Yeah. So anyway, that's my quick view of our situation in Waianae. Mahalo.
So, mahalo, Eric. I think people don't really understand that you guys were really trailblazers in some of these battles, and really in the movement to reconnect us to our Āina, which brings along sort of the theme that was sort of running through this panel, which is really how is our Āina contributing to our wellness as people. And all of you four panelists interact with Āina and food in one way or another as a way to bring health. And you do it in different ways, and you each have different stories, which is why I'm really excited to share all of your stories with you. So Eric, mahalo nui for leading the way. I know, sad to hear you're still fighting the battles. But I think your legacy is the inspiration for a lot of what we're going to be hearing from some of our other speakers today. And you're still doing wonderful work, and I'm still really blessed to bring my students to your wonderful Āina there. So I would like to move on now to Dean. Dean, are you there? There he is. So I'm going to ask Dean to share his story of how they use Āina to bring wellness or ho'ola to our people and their vision. So Dean, love to hear your story.
All right, aloha. First of all, I just want to say I'm really honored to be a part of this sharing, that the people who have spoken are the people who have not only been my teachers, but are really the people who have really inspired me. And really following Uncle Eric is a tough follow. He's really one of my heroes, and made a significant impact in inspiring me personally, and then ourselves as an organization to do what we do. And I'm glad that he really talked about the social challenges that we face, because that while we are talking about Āina and food, and I think that that's the beginning of true health, right? I mean, it's without a stomach that is full with healthy, nutritious food. That's without that we have no opportunity to really thrive and flourish. And so that's kind of the foundation of what's needed. But I think for ourselves, because of the social issues going on, we were really inspired to our focus was the individual, and our approach, or I guess our I'm going to use this fancy term that I learned once with iulani, this cohort. Our theory of change was that we could work with individuals, or what we say is that through the growing of kalo, we feel that we grow young people in community. And grow their health in that way, that it's a means to an end, but actually the whole, it's all interconnected and it's all tied in, but we started from that approach. So for myself, I'm an educator by trade. I taught in the DOE for nearly 15 years. I started off teaching in a normal public high school. I was at Kalahio High School out here on the windward side in Kailua. And I felt really compelled to teach Hawaiian kids, and to teach kids who, however we call it, come from the school of hard knocks. So I made a purposeful decision to teach at Olomana School, which is on our windward side. And it's a school for what was then termed at-risk youth. I don't know what the politically correct term is today. Our challenged youth. And most of these kids were Hawaiian kids. And so I went up there and I taught up there for, over 11, 12 years I was there. The last of those 5 years, then as a teacher with Olomana School, we serviced HYCF, which is the Hawaii Youth Correctional Facility. It's our state prison where I taught the incarcerated boys. So I had the opportunity, when I first was there, I was teaching on what I call the on and off campus. Most of the kids were from the windward side, weren't making it well, were challenged at the high schools they were at, and so they were there at their school. So I had a lot of kids from Waimanalo, from Kahaluu, and teaching English. And for kids who don't go to school too much, probably language arts and teaching English is probably the worst subject that they're interested in. And so I was really being challenged as to how do I make connections with these kids. And so right outside our door is good Āina, because if you're familiar with this area out in Maunawili or in Olomana, it's very fertile soil. And so I decided to just plant some kalo outside our classroom, because I was planting kalo at home, and I was making lau, and we're having these gatherings that were centered around the growing of food and spending time in the preparation of eating food. And so I started planting kalo with my students, and are and infusing the curriculum with literature on Hawaiian culture, specifically literature on the growing of kalo. And our culminating activity would be to make laulau. And it was really impactful for me to see that many of these Hawaiian kids had actually never made laulau before. You know, they would say their favorite food is Hawaiian food, but they had never made laulau. And I would say that a lot of them never even knew what it was made out of, you know, whether it was beef, pork, what the leaf was. And, but yet when they made the laulau and they were able to eat it and then share it, and not only tell everybody else with the teachers or other students that they made it, but that they helped to grow the food, the pride that they had in it. And so I saw it as a powerful teaching tool and a way to connect them to really who they are. And so over time, my wife and I, we were living in a normal place out here in Kailua and teaching right next to the school. I was 2 minutes away from school, the ideal setup, you know. And we were having these gatherings. I was making imu in the backyard and almost burned down my fence because it's just too small a place. And we thought, well, what if we had a larger place of land? What if we were able to lease a place of land? Being inspired by people like Uncle Eric, by the Rapun family out in Waiahole who were growing kalo. What if we had Āina that we could start to work and start to maybe create as a place to come and to grow food together, and then maybe make imu together and have a little, you know, tent area that we could gather around, and I play music, so kind of play music into the evening and things like that. What if we could do that? And so, long story made short, the path we chose, both my wife Michelle, who Martina mentioned, and I, we chose to sell our house and to look for Āina. And it was a pretty crazy journey against the thoughts of all of our family and friends who thought we were crazy. What are you guys doing? We had young kids then. We pursued this, and we found ourselves in this amazing Āina of Mauna Wili that we're at right now. So we're at a place called the Ilias Kapalai, and we've been here for 13 years now. We formed a nonprofit in 2011, and I became the first official employee when I left the DOE. This was in 2014. And again, our whole premise is that we use the growing of kalo as a means to grow young people and community. And it's I think something that is foreign today in the mindset, but when I listen to these stories, I watch the video, it's something that was so, it was so understood that we need the Āina for our well-being. You know, we're connected to Āina. Yeah, huli kalima ilalo, and that brings life to us. And so because we're so, I think, disconnected to Āina as a people, and it's just society in general. And this is not being connected to Āina is not simply a Hawaiian thing, I believe. I think it's a universal human thing. That we try to provide opportunities for people to connect and to grow food. And we're serious about the growing of food. We have really fertile, amazing Āina here, and we're very blessed by that. And so we try to really work hard and to produce food, knowing that as we start to restore Āina and taste the fruits of our labor, that it's really the Āina that restores us. And we've our theory of change, I believe, is working. I think it's true. There's so much more work we have to do and can do, but that's the journey that we've been on, and that we will continue to be on for as long as I'm standing. So anyway, a little background on myself and our organization, Ho'oku Āina. Mahalo.
Mahalo, Dean. I think one of the things he touched on really lightly, but the internship program out of their organization is actually a big part of their work. And it's really teaching young people life skills, especially kids that don't succeed in our current school system, which we know is a lot of our kids. So speaking of kids, I would like to introduce you next to Kaiulani Odom. My ohana has been blessed to be a part of some of Kaiu's programs, and I'm excited to have her share something that is really unique for a Western medicine healthcare system. And that is what Kōkua-Kalihi Valley has done. They have done something I think is very innovative and something that I hope more of our Western healthcare systems adopt and consider. So thank you for joining us, Kai'u. Oh, Kai'u, got to unmute. Oh.
Okay, there we go. Okay, mahalo. Thanks, Martina. Thank you to everybody on the panel. I too am glad to be here with everybody. You know, when I was a younger dietitian and just getting into all of the work, it was really Herbert, as I was learning about, like you said, you know, the nutrients, the protein and fat and carbohydrates. He was teaching me how to lay net and cook clean fish and do all of these kind of things. And that has been really instrumental in the work that I do today. And I worked for Claire at Department of Health, and that's where we did projects like Seasons of Hāloa, the Heli My Eye curriculum. There's another video out there called Mauliola, I think, that focuses more on making sure to keep their body active. And for Dean and Eric and Hanale, I watch their work. Even though I don't see them every day, I watch what they're doing all of the time and listen to the stories about people that interact with them. And that also helps to shape the work that I'm doing. So just feel really blessed to be here with everybody. I work for Kōkua-Kalihi Valley. We're a federally qualified health center. And I think Malia's gonna bring up my slides. And what's different about our health center is that we have 100, well, we believe in Āina-based health. And so very much connected to the things that you would find in a regular clinic. We have all of these programs that are centered around health of the Āina, health of we believe very strongly in the food system and how that affects our health. And so we have in the back of the valley, we have Ho'oluaina, which is 100 acres, and there's forestry, and there's our community gardens, and there's education. We now have a apothecary for La'au. We have a lomi room. And so trying to integrate all of these into the health center. We also have a smaller garden that is down at Kuhio Park Terrace, which is the largest public housing, and we grow all Pacific Island vegetables over there so that we're in the middle of an urban scene and trying to make sure that people still can go to a garden and touch the earth and to do all of that. And with COVID, you know, we've really had to shift what we're doing, but we've shifted it and expanded what we're doing. And so we're getting out fresh produce. We're doing healthy meals for kupuna in the community. And we're doing all of those things. And the people are paying a lot more attention to our food system right now. And what are we going to do? You know, the realization when the pandemic came and how our food system is. And so we've been also thinking about it a lot. And in my mind, you know, I heard this phrase on another talk, and I've really been thinking about how in our food system, we can talk about efficiency and we can talk about resiliency. And when we look back to our kupuna, the ahupua'a system was one where they were both efficient and resilient. They were growing food, they were fishing, they were taking care of their environment, they were doing conservation. They were making the system as efficient as they could, but they were also making it very resilient. Well, in today's society, we've given up a lot of that resiliency to become efficiency. The monocropping, the pesticides, the factory farms, they make our food system a little bit more efficient, but we've given up a lot of resilience in that. And then to have a healthy food system, you have to have a lot of smaller food systems inside of it. And so I am a food system, my family is a food system, my community is a food system. And so, you know, for, let's say, for moms, it's so much more efficient to do the shopping, to make the menus, to prepare all the food and get it on the table. But if we don't teach our kids any of that, what are we doing to their resiliency? When it comes to vegetables, we could buy a can of vegetables, or we could teach them how to plant something. And so there's this whole spectrum of from resilient to efficient. And we do want to be efficient. I'm not saying that we don't, but in today's world, and when we're looking at our food system and we're looking at our kids and we're looking at our health, when we become too efficient, what are we giving up in resiliency? Next slide, please. And so we are trying to make a more resilient food system. You know, this is our our food hub. You see Kristen on the left, and we are working with 14 to 17 small organic farmers every week to bring in their produce. And what we found was in this time, the pandemic, who's really doing a lot and we're able to use all of their produce is really the smaller, diverse farmers that are doing a lot of work. And before the pandemic, we were ordering about 500 to 1,000 pounds of fruits and vegetables for the week for all of our programs, for our cafe. And we're up to 6,000 to 7,000 pounds a week right now. And being able to support our farmers, to support our families, to be able to support any of our patients that do happen to test positive. We make them a big box of fruits and vegetables. We make sure there's a complex carbohydrate like kalo, ulu, wala, cassava, and a lot of green leafy vegetables, and then a fruit that's in season and that was grown on this ʻāina. Because we truly believe that the food that is grown on the land and it's close to you is where you are, understands your body, understands what it needs, understands the nutrients, and that as Herbert alluded to, nobody is by themselves. And so creating opportunities to just come together and to share and laugh and talk is actually something we're missing right now because we've had to close that down. But we operate out of our loading dock every Tuesday and Thursday. And so people I see posts all the time asking, where can we get the kalo and ulu and wala? And we have that every week at our community food hub. Next slide, please. And then Martina was talking about the programs. I work for a health system, and when you think of a federally qualified health center, this isn't really what you think about, but we really believe that our kids are important and our families are important. And so this goes along to the line of resiliency, like you can teach them how to fish, you can buy tuna in a can, or you can have, I don't know, the fish burger from McDonald's. And so we choose to try and go to the resilient spectrum. We're gonna teach them how to fish, we're gonna teach them how to clean fish. The top left picture is, working in the lo'i. The bottom left-hand picture is having them in the kitchen, trying to learn how to cook. We've become a society that doesn't cook a lot anymore. And so we have monthly cooking classes for our kids. We even had to shift to Zoom for the pandemic, but we made packets for the families. They pick them up and then the kids cook with us every month on Zoom. So we're trying to teach them, and then in teaching them to catch their fish and to do all of this, you're teaching them to respect the environment, because if your food is coming from the ocean, if that's your refrigerator, then you better take care of it. You can't be dumping rubbish and polluting and doing all of that. We often do a beach cleanup and all of these things that teach them about the whole process of food, from where it begins to where it ends up into your stomach. Next slide, please. Another program that we run is a cultural birthing program for Native Hawaiian couples, because these seeds are the most important seeds that we're going to be growing. And so what happens is, and people have heard me say this, but I often say that the moms carry the eggs and the dads carry the sperms, but these are the eggs and sperm of your children who will give birth to their children, who will then give birth to their children. So you hold inside of you all of your future generations, as far as you can see and even beyond that. And that means that everything you eat on a daily basis nourishes all of your future generations. And everything that you say on a daily basis is heard by your great, 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 great grandchildren. And everything you do on a daily basis, your future generation knows about. So if we look at health in that way, in that everything we put in our bodies, everything that we say, everything that we do is going to affect all of our family all down the line, then maybe we would start to look at things a little bit differently. Maybe we'd look at health a little bit differently. It's not just about bringing down your blood sugars or losing 20 pounds because your 20-year reunion is coming up, those kind of things, but that we're really talking about the future of our lahui, and everything that we do on a daily basis affects that. The bottom right-hand picture is what we use. There's, after you give birth on the 3rd and 6th day, there's a la'au called the akuhala, who we learned from Ipu Wang, who learned from her grandfather. And it was something when we began this work 12 years or so that I had read in a book. And I'd read it twice in 2 separate books about this la'au that was given after birth. And it became something that we said, well, we're going to find out what this is. And then I met Ipu, who told me that, she came to our class one day and she showed us how to do it. And it's something that's we'll never write down, but we have to, if the families want to do it, they have to come up the third day after they give birth. But we've helped 65 families do this so far. And so this is just for me an example of the work about reaching back into our rich history of knowledge and skills about health and bringing it forward and using it to help all of our families, that we're making these practices live, that they need to live. We shouldn't be saying, oh, our ancestors used to do this, or we used to do that, but we do it today, we live. Last slide. And I'm including, this is just part of some of the work we do around the food system. You know, it's not just about having the food, but it's having the conversation. Before the pandemic, we used to do these dinners called Decolonizing Our Diets. And we'd have, you know, everything from GMOs to, you know, fishing guidelines, but we'd bring people together for really healthy, fun meals and then have hard conversations, because we need to do that. You know, colonization and a lot of other things have really affected our food system, and we have to have some hard conversation. And this beautiful picture is something that Eric's son Solomon did for me when I was teaching at Kamehameha, and I needed a much more cultural way than the pyramid to get across healthy eating. But in what we're doing with our food system and how we're trying to affect our food system, you know, this is our pohaku Is Aipono. You see the faces in the mountains to remind us that our kupuna, no matter what ethnicity you're from, they had a lot of knowledge about health and healthy foods. You see people working in the fields, and that's to remind us that our food system takes work. It takes, you know, hard work. It's not all delivered in clear plastic wrap and styrofoam containers, and we need to make sure that we're giving attention to that. On the bottom of the pohaku Aipono, you see is a pair of hands, which you can't see. And that reminds us of the spirituality, which Claire talked about earlier, that is in all of our foods and that we can't forget about it. And so these are just some of the tools that we're using. But again, I encourage you really, when you think about food choices, when you think about what you're going to eat, how you're going to teach your kids about food, where are you on the spectrum of resiliency and efficiency? And how much of our resilience do we give up to be efficient? And just let that help us to make choices on a daily basis. Thank you.
Mahalo, Ka'u. I love that question for us about resiliency versus efficiency. It's certainly a new way to look at it. I just, something struck me as you were talking, when you were talking about the food we eat impacting our future generations. And I don't know if all of our viewers are aware that in medicine, there's a field of study called epigenetics. And in epigenetics, we're actually studying the impact of our diet. In fact, the impact of our diet and the things that we take into our body and how it's affecting our DNA and the things around our DNA and how that can get transmitted to future generations. So fascinating stuff, and certainly something for us to keep in mind. I had a request from one of our viewers. Some of the Hawaiian words, not everybody may be familiar with them. So just a quick recap, a couple words I kind of caught as we were going along. Ahupua'a, that's our land division from the mountain to the ocean. Those of you that heard Uncle Herbert talk, he kept talking about Mauka and Makai, mountain and ocean. And it's all those resources. Our elders, our kupuna, our ancestors divided our lands that way to assure that our people had access to resources, both Mauka, mountain, and Makai, ocean. So that's Ahupua'a. Some of the food terms, kalo, probably figured out that was taro. Some people might not know that ulu is breadfruit and uala is sweet potato. And if there's any others that strike me as we go along, I'll try to translate for you. So, so thank you. Thank you, Ka'u. So the three speakers I had before are all working. There are three different models, right? We have a model, a non-profit that started the battles. Then we have Dean inspired to use his nonprofit for education, but Also, they sell their food so they can support some of their activities. Then you have a healthcare system that's interacting with Āina and food to improve the health of their families. So everybody here is focusing on health, right? And I'm talking about health very holistically. So health through education, health through our food, and they've also talked about taking care of our Āina. So health as far as taking care of the land and the water around us. So our last speaker is actually a full-time kalo farmer, and he is trying to provide healthy food for our people as a full-time, not a nonprofit, but actually making a living that way. And I thought it would be really wonderful to have him talk about his story and what he's doing and how that connects to his vision of wellness for people as well. So Hanale, you're on. Go for it. Yeah.
Right on. Mahalo. How's it, everybody? Thank you for having me. Boy, it's quite an honor to be speaking this evening. And especially with such a amazing group of people. I definitely feel I would not be here right now if it wasn't for the work of everybody that just spoke before me. So mahalo, you know. The first time I ever saw somebody pound taro was up at Ka'ala Farms, you know, and me and my wife, my little one is over here. So if you see me kind of running back and forth, that's why, you know, and, you know, but we were in Auntie Ka'u's birthing class, you know, and, you know, I think Dean Wilhelm's probably the youngest friend that I have, you know. All the rest of my farmer friends are in the 70s, you know, and just like I said, you know, it's an incredible honor. You know, I grew up in Ka'alaia. My parents are 200. Yep. Sorry. My parents are Daniel and Meala Bishop. I went to Waiahole Elementary. You know, a lot of my classmates, you know, the Rapoons kids, Uncle Paul and Uncle Charlie were very active. Yes, bye. And, you know, we were all kind of involved in the Waiahole water struggle in the 90s. And that's kind of the foundations that I had growing up. You know, we all, you know, when we're all little kids, you know, holding hands in front of the gate, and it would rain and everybody would make plans to get arrested and all that. You know, from that stemmed Hui Kalo, you know, founded with Uncle Paul, Uncle Charlie, Auntie Gwen. And in fact, that, you know, just in 2018, I released an album, you know, and, you know, it's a little kid, that's me, you know, moving rocks through a river, you know, and that was the very first Hui Kalo work day. And that was in Waiahole River. We were restoring an OI to go to Albert Badillo's farm, you know. From there, Maukalo'i started, and we were all young kids growing up, Maukalo'i, and we'd travel to other islands and help restore taro patches. Yeah, there you go. There you go. And then, you know, I graduated from high school, got a you know, a surveying job. I did that for 5 years. You know, and then in that time, Maukalo'i had unfortunately closed down, and my father and his buddy Chance, they procured this farm that we're on now, and they were some years into it already. And even before that, you know, when I was 18 years old, Uncle Paul Rapoon, you know, he pointed his finger at me one day and he said, "You want a job? You show up at the poi factory tomorrow." And that's how that started as well, you know. And I got over there and started working the mill at the Waiahole Poi factory. At 26 years old, I ended up quitting my job, you know, during the economic downturn. That was 2009. And you know, cashed in my retirement and started working with my father up at the farm. At 27, I started Homestead Poi, you know, and maybe around 29, 30, Dad turned the farm over to me and Megan, my wife, and you know, we're still going. I'm 37 now, so it's been about 11 years hanging in there. For 5 of those years, we had the privilege of living on the farm in a little cabin, and it was beautiful, you know, you know, and we're still just really just figuring it out, you know, figuring out where how you fit into this whole, all of this stuff going on, and especially, you know, the more recent challenges. You know, I think 2 years ago, our little farmers market in Kaneohe, the organizers were going to close down, and we were like, okay, well, let's just try and take it over, you know. And you know, a small group of people tried to set up a little co-op, you know, and we've just been going from there, you know. The farm's in Waiahole. It's right across from Uncle Paul them's. Dad named it He Hawaiiao. And we've since just kind of, it's gone through several names, and everybody's been resting on Homestead Poi Farm now. You know, it's a 12-acre property right on the stream, has an abundance of water. If I was to take pictures of the street going in there, it would probably look like Uncle Eric's. You know, it's got it all. It's got the abandoned cars. It's got the you know, the drug house that was on the property. It's got all of that, you know. And you know, it's been a process healing that land, you know, and you know, knowing that it's yourself as well that you've got to put that effort to also, you know, otherwise, you know, you could get swallowed up in all of it. But you know, that's pretty much how it's been going. Yeah, and like I said, I'm just, wow, I'm honored to be here.
Hanale, I love having your keiki in the background. Your child there reminds us that ohana is really what we're all about. And I really loved what you said about healing the land, and that ends up healing ourselves. And really, it's an analogy for healing our people. I think Uncle Eric talked about that earlier, about that Āina that he showed us pictures of, and what they're having to do, and how that they're that little kipuku, or that little space of refuge and cultural rejuvenation, and that the area of wellness. So I love that you brought up that analogy, because really I think all of you, I think even Dean at Maunawili, that was land that had to be cleaned up and brought to health and production. Ho'oulu Āina, the same thing. Definitely in Waianae, and I know in Waihole as well. I've been really privileged to be able to see all of those sites, all 4 of your Āina, and they're just beautiful places, and I'm just really blessed to have had that opportunity. So a lot of you talked about one of the questions I was going to ask, which is, how does your work create a path to wellness for our people? And I think you've all addressed that in your intros, but I wanted to give you the opportunity to expand on that a little bit if you'd like to. So just again, the question is, how does your work create a path to wellness for our people? The theme today is ho'ola. Open it up to any of you for.
I can go. I think that it affects everybody, and so we have interns that come in and bring in chocolate bars for breakfast, and they, you know, nobody really has to say, "Oh, I don't think that's such a good idea." But what we do is we are able to feed them a lot of really good, healthy, good tasting food all of the time. For all of our staff members, it's about really being examples for everybody else and to learn about all of the foods. You know, I didn't mention while I was talking that Ho'okuaina and Dean's farm, we get, you know, a lot of foods from a lot of our ulu and kalo from them. And Kristen always reminds me, because I'm like, oh, well, she's, you know, going off to all these places, that it's really the connections that we're building up. So when you go to a supermarket, you really don't know the person that grew your food. And when they come from Mexico, you sure as heck don't know what they do. But when we can make those connections between where we're getting our food, what we're doing with our food, and even serving it to the community, and then they can come in and then we get to tell the stories about where it comes. All of that is very meaningful for people. And so it's, for us, the connections that we build between the food and the people and our community, just by serving and preparing and knowing all of this, is one of the pathways that we're building up health in our community.
Thank you. How about any of my other panelists? Anybody want to expand on that thought? I know you touched on it all three of you in a way in your initial presentations, but I wanted to give you a chance to kind of think, expand on it if you had a chance, because you may have been conscious about not taking too much time early on in your presentation.
Well, yeah, you know, it's like Auntie Kai'u said, you know, unfortunately, our little farmers market is kind of shut down at the moment. But those stories that you get from that direct interaction, you know, and you know, in itself is, you almost feel like it's healing for these people participating in that exchange as well, you know. Obviously, and when I got my start making poi, you know, I asked questions of a lot of the other poi makers, and they told me that exact same thing. The relationships you're going to develop with your customers, they're going to become family, you know. And even with our farmers market shut down at the moment, you know, I think about these people. You know, it's not like they just kept me in business, but it's also like, you know, like Uncle Harvey, one of the farmers in Waihola, he always says, you know, I feel like a mother to everybody, you know. And you know, and so like these stories, yeah, honey, 3 strawberries. There you go. You know, these stories are you know, I mean, like, people would come to the market and they would, okay, I might pass for a second, sorry.
I just want to comment, you know, it's because of people like Hanale and Dean that it's actually much easier for us to get poi. I remember the days when you had to know who was delivering to which supermarket on one day. And now if you really want to get poi, it's so much easier, which I think is such a blessing for our people. So Hanale hasn't come back yet. So Eric or Dean, did you want to say a little bit along those lines?
Okay, well, I'll jump in. But I just want to mahalo to Dean and his ohana, and Hanale and his ohana, and Kai'u and all the work KKV they're doing. They really are our heroes, yeah. And you know, just it's the interconnectedness of ahupua to ahupua. Like it's like sewing upena, yeah. We are creating the safety net ahupua by ahupua. And you know, when we first started 25, 30 years ago, there were only like a couple projects like ours. Now they're on every island. They're almost in Hawaiian communities. Gotta go back on the Āina. And, you know, like everybody say, well, you know, tutu mauna kea. But I tell everybody, what is the health of your mauna, of your ahupua? So we cannot just fly flags. We gotta go kano o ka ʻāina. We gotta go plant kalo, plant uala, anything. Even if you know more hale, you can plant inside containers, but we gotta do that. Otherwise, you're not kanaka, yeah. So we gotta do this, and it's universal. One of our sayings is that the earth is not racist. So we got everybody in us in Hawaii. We got all the nations in us. So in a nation divided today, I think the lessons of our work in our ahupua is so important. That spirituality. You can have a Buddhist, you can have a Hindu, you can have a Protestant, you can have a Catholic, but we all gotta say, hey, you know, God is aloha, aloha ke akua. And then for us, also working with the men and women in treatment with ho'omau ke ola, and having their people come up for the last, I don't know, 20, 25 years, men and women, mostly Kanakas, coming from the prison system. And it's the first time they touch Āina because they're from the streets. And when they come up to places like Ka'ala, it's a transformation, first connection to the culture, because their culture was the streets, and their parents were just, you know, it's the loss of our culture about 3, 4, 5 generations ago, and now all that historical trauma. So now it's in recovery, it's in restoration, and Kabai Ola, we really need that water. So that water of life, and the water first has to touch our watershed, and it's our forest, the Vau Akua, then the Vau Kanaka. So that water rights is so important for every Ahukua. And I'll stop there. And Brother Dean, when I went to your Āina, I was just so impressed with what you guys are doing. So mahalo.
Dean, that was a great segue for you. I think very powerful words that you are following here.
Indeed. Well, thank you, Uncle Eric. You know, I think the way I look at it is it really is, it's a privilege to do what we do. You know, we talk about that word kuleana, and I feel so privileged with the journey that I've been on personally in my journey with Aloha Āina and connecting with Āina and our journey as a family. I'm thankful that we have the opportunity to really do the work of our ancestors and to be in a place where we are reaping the benefits, the direct benefits of growing in that relationship. And all I can say is it's not rocket science, you know, what we're talking about. It's health. It's right in front of us. We have a precedent that was set. We know that. And now it's just providing, I think, opportunities for those who maybe were struggling, as Uncle Eric said. You know, it's generational trauma that we're working with. And so people who have been disconnected for so many years, we cannot expect that even if they full Hawaiian, that they're going to understand those things. And so I think it's all of us doing our part within our little humble areas within our ahupua'a to just keep doing what we're doing on a daily basis, and welcoming those to stand along with us and work, because knowing that it will bless them in the process. I just applaud everybody. I applaud this whole talk story thing. I don't go on computers and Facebook too much or all of this kind of stuff, but I really applaud the heart behind this evening. And so Malia, thank you, Martina, as well as Kim, for putting this together and for having us share with one another and really be. I'm very inspired, and it's going to help me to keep doing the work that we do. So mahalo nui.
I'm actually inspired to have all of you in one screen. I wish we could be in one place, but in one screen talking story. I want to go back to those really powerful words that Uncle Eric shared with us about disconnect, our people being disconnected from our culture, having this history, and really being a mechanism for reconnection, and doing that through culture. And I think that's one thing that Ka'ala Farm has been really focused on for many years is taking our kids, taking our folks in prison and in rehab systems, and trying to get us to reconnect with culture, touch the Āina. And I think there's something really powerful about touching the Āina. But I'm sure Eric, as the one that's been here in this fight for connecting our people and connecting us to Āina and trying to move us forward toward this vision of wellness for people, I'm sure you have some thoughts about what's happened, what's going on now, what you see for the future. And I'm sure there are probably some challenges and some positive things, but I kind of would love to have you take that retrospective lens of 30 years or so that you've been doing this work, and bring it forward to us to now and the future.
You mean you want me to speak truth to power? That's risky.
Where's your chance?
we have with all the ali'i trusts, we have, you know, I mean, with all the Āina that we have, and we have, with all the resources we have, it's not connected. Yeah, we have to build those bridges in corporate Hawaiian world, with all the wealth there is. This incredible wealth, you know. I mean, just look at the elections. Millions and millions and millions of dollars going into getting people elected. But how much resources goes into programs that really help our, you know, down in communities and in work training programs and building our own hale and building our own resources and wealth of the land. We gotta invest in community building. We have to, because a child without a purpose is very dangerous, and we see that. Yeah. So we gotta invest in the future, and we are not investing. You know, it's a disconnect. Our education, well, you know, we've been working in the educational system forever and ever and ever. Yeah. So it's changing, but it's not going at a rate that I think is. It's still siloed. We're incredibly siloed. Our agencies for helping our people are very siloed. Yeah. And so, if nothing else, we got to break down those silos, and I'll stop there.
Mahalo nui. That, what just wonderful words for us to think about moving forward. You see that silo everywhere. I certainly see it in academics and in medicine. We're very siloed, and it's all about communication and networking and connection, isn't it? And part of that charge, I want to segue some of that charge that you just gave us to think about, to kind of connect to Hanale's work a little bit, in that we really need to be supporting our farmers, and we need to be supporting our farmland. And of course, that means that they need to have access to water. And I think it's really sad that on the windward side, where we have so rich in water resources, that our kalo farmers are still having to fight for kalo. So Hanale, we're near the end of our time, but you didn't get a chance to finish your thoughts. So I wanted to give you that opportunity if there was something that you wanted to share before we ended this evening's session.
Yeah, I guess so. You know, it's like how Uncle Eric said, it really is about restoration, you know, especially in Hui Kalo. You know, I don't feel like any time that we did a job, we were building new lo'i from scratch. It was always restoration, you know, and in that travel, you know, it's like how I did. Yes, I'm okay. It's like how, you know, in the end you find yourself, you know. Hey, come here for a second. You know, and so, you know, when we have groups up on the farm, this is river, everybody. You know, the one thing I always try to tell them is that you know, growing the taro really is your best teacher, you know, and you got to think about what it takes to grow it. It is a long-term crop, in which case, you know, long-term care. It's a patient crop, you know, and it's also a very forgiving crop too. It needs the most pristine of all of the elements, you know, clean air, rich earth, pristine water, you know, and then it also needs that fire in your heart to be able to make it happen, you know, and you know, in my own story through all of this, you know, it's, you know, we got to, you know, like I said, me and my wife for 5 years, we lived in a little cabin up over there. And most of that time, you know, I worked alone. And it was an incredible experience, you know, and you really talk to God in all of those moments, you know, when the wind's blowing through the taro, when you go and work on the po'ovai, hiking up the mountain, these trails, you know, all of that. And I, you know, just through my own work, through all of these years now, you know, wondering where that lone farmer fits into all of this, you know, and how, because it really was a long process for me to even get there. So many stars and planets had to align, you know, that, you know, how do we, you know, my hope is that more people will be able to experience that and find that, you know, and even though, like, you know, it's been 11 years now, I would say, like, so many of the challenges that, you know, they're all still present, but the one thing that's different is I feel like a much different person than when I started out, you know. And even back then, I thought I was so much older, but I really wasn't, you know. I don't know. You know, and that's just the aim already at this point, you know. Restoration.
So on that, with all these inspiring words that we've had, so the theme I'm hearing really is the path to wellness for our people, which was what was in our minds when we first thought of this panel, is really, it's restoration, reconnection, reclaiming in a way, so that, and connection to culture as a way to transform and to help us to move forward. And we really need to break down these silos and work together. Because you can see we have some very powerful forces in our community. And if we all work together, we can make a huge difference and really help our people on this path to wellness, which is our dream. We were a well, healthy people when, you know, Captain Cook landed. He saw thriving people, and that's what we should be. That's what we're meant to be. So I want to mahalo all our panelists for showing us visions of different models and ways of looking at this, and sharing all your wisdom, sharing your passion, and don't forget the charge that we've heard from all of them on how to move forward. So mahalo nui. I'm going to hand this back over to Malia. We've gone a couple minutes over. Thank you everyone for staying with our program this evening.
Ai, aloha no, mahalo nui ya oko pakahi. It's really been an honor to have all of you as a part of Hawaiian History Month, and really to wrap up our third week of Ho'ola and such great mo'olelo. So, you know, thank you to Uncle Herbert, Auntie Julia, Auntie Claire, and to all of our moderators and our panelists that just completed. So thankful for all of you. We welcome all of you to continue to support Hawaii Pono'i, and you know, we are putting a kahea out to partner with the Iolani Palace and to empower the palace. And we ask you to go to our website, and you can learn more about the various donation levels and how you can contribute to the palace. And we mahalo Maile Meyer and Namea Hawaii for contributing these different items like the Hawaii Pono'i sheet music, the Uluhai Malama pamphlet, the Queen Liliʻuokalani, or the diaries of Queen Liliʻuokalani, the Kuʻulei petitions, and just so many more. So you can find out more information on our website at hawaiiponoi.org/empower. Or if you're wanting to learn more about the palace, you can go directly to their website, iolanipalace.org, and you'll be taken to a very similar page there that will be able to contribute to the work that the palace is doing. A big mahalo to all of our partners that have helped us make this possible, to Kamehameha Schools, to the Office of Hawaiian Affairs, Friends of Iolani Palace, Kanayo Kana, Oiwi TV, Council for Native Hawaiian Advancement, Liliʻuokalani Trust, Namea Hawaii, Pu'uhonua Society, the UH Manoa Hawaii Nui Akea School of Hawaiian Knowledge, UH Manoa John A. Burns School of Medicine, Department of Native Hawaiian Health, Papa Ola Lokahi, Hawaii Youth Upper Chorus, Kahuli Leolea, Pam Omidyar, and the Noah Webster Aluli Foundation. Again, you know, next week we will be continuing on with our week 4, and our theme for week 4 is Mele La Hui. And so our Hawaii Youth Upper Chorus is helping us to gather all of this programming, and we will be updating our website over the weekend. So tune back to HawaiianHistoryMonth.org, and we invite you all to join us for week 3 and week 4. And have a beautiful weekend, everyone. Stay safe and aloha.